It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. Marbury versus Madison, 1803. Hello, my name is Dakota Rodriguez, and today we'll be discussing Marbury versus Madison. And today we want to understand the concept of judicial review and its significance in the American legal system, and understand the lasting impact on the balance of power that this case and this precedent had among the three branches of government. So a little background, early 19th century America was marked by political rivalry between the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Federalists favored strong central control or governmental control, and the Democratic Republicans were anti-federalist and advocated for states' rights instead. Thomas Jefferson was elected in 1800s, and this shifted power to the Democratic Republicans or the anti-federalists. Also, the Judiciary Act of 1801 was passed by the outgoing Federalists, and this created new federal judgeships. William Marbury's appointment as Justice of the Peace in the District of Columbia became the focal point in this conflict between the two parties. So the disputes. The central conflict in the case arose from William Marbury's appointment as Justice of the Peace. Marbury was appointed by the outgoing President John Adams during the final days of his administration, and James Madison, the incoming Secretary of State under Jefferson, refused to deliver this commission. The case revolved around whether Marbury had a legal right to his commission and whether the court had the authority to enforce it. And also it's important to note that President Adams, on his way out of office, he made many late judicial appointments, and they became known as the Midnight Appointments. So Chief Justice John Marshall is also important to know in this. He was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court during this time. He was a Federalist and a strong supporter of the central control of government. He was appointed by Adams, and he played a central role in the decision in this case. So the decision in this case, the court ruled that Marbury had a right to his commission as Justice of the Peace. However, the important factor here is the court also determined that it couldn't enforce Marbury's commission because the Judiciary Act of 1789 that granted that power was actually unconstitutional. And in doing so, the Marshall Court established this principle of judicial review. So what did this mean? So judicial review gave the Supreme Court the power to review and invalidate laws that they deemed to contradict the Constitution. And obviously this redefined the balance of power among the branches of government, and it made the Supreme Court, an equal player in interpreting the Constitution like it wasn't before. And this transformed the court into a guardian of constitutional principles and ensured the Constitution's supremacy in protecting individual rights. So the court's power of judicial review is regularly invoked. I think if you watch the news today, we all have seen the Supreme Court at the center of many political issues. In recent cases, most of them are related to civil rights and individual liberties, and the government's actions often hinge on the court's ability to assess the constitutionality of the laws and executive actions. So the power of the Supreme Court obviously remains this controversial piece of American government because interpretation of the Constitution relies on the ideological stance of the bench, of the justices that sit on the bench. So their interpretation of the Constitution is going to rely on many factors, including their own ideology and their own methodology for reading the Constitution. So what are your opinions on judicial review? Obviously, it's essential in our modern democratic system, and it has become a necessary check on other branches of government, but some may see it as an obstacle to the democratic system, as the courts can overturn laws and decisions by democratically elected members of the government. That's going to be it for us today. Thank you.